Okay guys, we are doing our first tutorial in Flash. This is going to be called Cubist Picasso. You'll find it on the website. Hopefully you're there already. And we're going to be creating this little graphic here using Flash. This is just to introduce us to some of the drawing tools and then the difference between strokes and fills and a couple of tools here and there on the interface just to get used to that workflow. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is get a graphic. So go to Google and search Cubist Picasso. Okay, we're going to scroll down, and this is the image we want. So when we click on it, it's going to open another browser. We're going to scroll down to here, and we're going to be using this graphic. Okay, here's Animate, which used to be called Flash. It's now called Animate. It's essentially the same thing. It's just been rebranded. We're going to be working on a little graphic for this. So let's start off with the new file. You may be using a newer version of Animate, but essentially they're all the same. So let's open up an ActionScript 3 file, and whenever we start a new software and open it up, we want to reset the workspace. So up in the top right corner here, you're going to see Essentials or some version of that, and that resets the layout of all the different palettes. So we want to go to Essentials, and then we want to go to Reset Essentials. Right, and the reason we want that is so that when I'm working on something, you'll see the same layout on your screen so that you can find all the things that we're working on. I'm going to move this. I like to have this guy over here just the way I like my setup. I'm going to dock that palette and make it into a 2-column palette like that, and then let's get going. I'm going to switch over between, you'll see me switching back and forth between applications. So instead of clicking down here and then clicking back here, I use the Command Tab shortcut. So hold Command and hit Tab, and it's going to go through any open applications that you have. So I'm holding Command with my thumb and just hitting Tab, and it'll go to whatever application I want. So you see I switched over to Chrome. If I hold Command and Tab again, you'll see it'll go back to the last thing I had open, which was Animate. Okay, so that will take me back and forth between. I'm going to grab this guy here, and I'm just going to drag it right onto the interface here. Okay, and now I've got a reference. I'm going to be using this as reference. Okay, so let's take a look at the interface here. We've got a few things. This is our tool palette that we'll be using. This here is called the canvas. We've got a timeline, which we'll be learning a lot about later. And we've got some properties over on the side here. Okay, the palettes can be moved around and changed according to what you're doing. We'll be learning how we do that at a later date, just because for now we don't need too many palette changes. So for now, leave it as it is, aside from that toolbar being over here. Okay, let's get started with the interface. We've got a bunch of tools here, and some of them you might recognize. If you've used Photoshop before or any of the other Adobe softwares, you'll recognize some of these tools. Some of them look probably similar to other tools, or if you've used things like Paint and whatnot, you might see some of these tools, or have seen some of these tools before. They probably, some of them work in some similar ways, but let's see exactly what we're looking at here. So the first thing I want to do is just, we've talked about this a little bit in class, but if you remember, choose a color here. If you remember, we've got a fill and a stroke. So when I make a shape, I get a fill based on the color that's selected, and a stroke, which is like an outline based on the color that's selected there. Okay, I can change that to whatever I want, and then that's going to update to different colors. We're going to be using this, kind of these two colors, and the line tool and some shape tools to create this graphic here. Okay, so I'm going to use my selection tool, and I'm going to drag over both of these and delete them. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is go to my line tool here. Okay, and I'm going to start off with creating the line that divides kind of the left half of this face. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to drag down roughly on the same angle. Okay, and that's going to give me a line. Now I need this to, instead of being green, I need it to be black. So I'm going to select this, okay, by clicking here, and I can either do it on the left here, or I could do it in my properties. You'll notice that I've got a properties tab here, and I can change that to black. I also can do things like thicken it up. So if I change my stroke width, I can go from, it was set at 1, I can set it up to any number, or I can type in a specific number. Okay, that's now 5 pixels in width, which is closer to what we're looking for over here. You'll see that this one is a bit thicker, so we'll make some variations on this as we go. Okay, but that's our first line. I also need a curve here. Now there's a couple ways I can do that. I could add another couple of lines like this. here, and here. And then I could change the angle of these by angling them. So let's take a look at how that works. If I go to my selection tool, and I put my cursor at the midpoint or along the midpoint of this segment, I get this curved cursor that shows up. Okay, and I can curve that out. If I went to the end of a point, you'll see that instead of being a curve like that, we actually get a right angle. Okay, and that's actually picking up the point, the anchor point, and moving it. Okay, so I can pick that up and let go. I put that back by going Edit, Undo, or Command Z, and then I want to curve this one out as well. So I'm going to kind of hopefully get that curve right. And if I feel like there's still a point here, if you can see it, I'm not sure if you can see, but there's still a point here. I'm going to bring this down and then just try and get that curve right, and that looks about right to me. Okay, maybe this has to come a little further down. That's okay. Next, I'm going to take this line tool. Now I want to connect it here. Now I'm gonna purposely turn this little tool off. This is called Snap to Objects. I'm gonna turn this off, and then I'm gonna draw a line that kind of goes to here. And then I'm gonna zoom in using my zoom tool. Okay, I'm just gonna zoom in right here, and you'll see that these are actually not connected. Okay, when I drag that line up here, it got in the right area, but it's actually not connected to this. Okay, and what that means is that where the points come, this point actually has to come right to this edge for it to close the shape. We're gonna have some shapes here, and we want those shapes to close. And if they are not exactly aligned, okay, then they're not going to be a closed shape. They're just going to look like they are. So we got to be careful about that. So I'm going to go back to 100%, and I'm going to delete this line. I'm going to turn this snap. I'm going to go back to my line tool. Turn this snap back on, and watch what happens now. When I drag this here and I go to the corner, you will kind of feel this as you're doing it. It's hard to maybe tell, but it's snapping to that point there. So if I zoom in now, okay, you'll see that this is in fact now connected. This line and that line, all of these they terminate at the same anchor point, which means that they're connected. Okay, that's an important distinction between having something close and actually having it connected. Another important thing to note is that when I have two lines that cross over each other, as soon as they cross over, this goes from being two segments, 1, 2, it goes to being 4 segments that are connected in the middle here. So if you'll notice that if I click on this, it doesn't go all the way through. It actually only selects the segment up to the point that it crosses over. I can add to this by holding Shift and clicking, and that will now select the 2. But whenever we have a crossover in any point, this becomes a new point. Okay, so there is a anchor point that's connecting those together. Okay, that's something important to recognize too, and you'll see why that's important as we move through this. Okay, I've got the sort of front section of this nose. I want to get this curve here. So a couple ways to do this, but I think the easiest way is just to add a couple of line segments like this, and then using that curving tool again, I'm gonna kind of curve out this nose, and I may have to do a little bit of like finessing to get it right, but essentially I want it something like that. Okay, so there's our nose curvature, and then I'm going to kind of just do these lines here. So I'm going to go my line tool. I'm going to bring this one from here. It snaps. You notice it snapped to that edge here. Okay, I'm going to bring this up in line here. I'm going to continue this mouth a little bit over this way. I may have to realign some of this in a second, but that's okay. I'm going to bring this mouth down to here and here. And then I'm going to go back to my selection tool. And I'm just going to, I might zoom in to make this a little bit easier. Okay, and then I'm going to just align these. I think I might I'm going to get rid of this line here, delete on my keyboard, and I'm going to bring this guy down a little bit. Get rid of this line. And I think I might actually just get rid of that anchor point. All right, and that sort of cleans up the edges there. Okay, this is going to be curved, so I'm going to fix that. And then it looks like there's a line that comes down here, and then we need a curve. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this curve here first. Okay, so let's. While I have a tool selected, if I need to move around, there's a couple ways I could do it. I could change to this hand tool and move things, but then I've got to keep going back to my toolbox to change tools, and it kind of gets cumbersome. It gets slow. So what I can do is while I have any of my tools selected, if I'm using a tool and I hold my space bar, it changes to the hand temporarily. So while I'm holding that space bar, I now have the ability to move things around. I can keep using whatever tool I'm using, change my selected tool to the hand tool, okay, which gives me the ability to pan around my screen, okay, without losing my tool. Okay, I'm going to create this circle or this curve here. Okay, it looks a bit like that. I've still got a fill selected. Notice that we've been using the line tool, and so because the line tool only does segments, we haven't got any fill colors yet. That's okay. We're gonna fix that. But because I just created a circle using the ellipse tool, or the oval tool, I should say, it has auto selected the fill color that I had previously selected. Okay, I'm just gonna create a line here, and I'm gonna go across to about there. Use my select tool to get rid of that segment, and just the kind of extra pieces I don't need. Now I need to move these together, so if I click, notice it only selects the fill, not the stroke, and vice versa. If I just click here, it's only selecting the one element. I need to select all of it, so that is a double click. 1, 2, and it selects everything, okay? And then I can place this as I want. Put this over here, and that looks about right there. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in again, and I'm going to change to my direct select tool, which is this one, close to the selection tool, but a sub-selection tool. And I'm just going to select over this to see how that point there is not connected to our actual curve. I'm actually going to pick this point up. So I'm going to go from here and drag this until you'll see it snaps, and now it's right on that line. So that means that this shape here and this shape here are going to be closed shapes, which means I can fill them in as I want. Okay, I'm going to go Command 1 to zoom out to 100% again, and I'll bring this up so you guys can see it well. Okay, so we're okay there. I think I've gotten a little low, so I'm actually going to select all of this. I'm going to drag over all of it, and I'm going to use my arrow keys on my keyboard just to move things up a little bit. Okay, so I'm moving 1 pixel at a time up until I'm sort of where I need to be. The top of his kind of pointy head should go to the top, and I need a little bit of space underneath that circle here. So that resolves that issue. Okay, let's finish off this mouth here. So I'm going to snap that to here. Now you can see that we have, notice that with this purple shape here, we've got a black fill around it. But here we've got a blue and a green shape, but there's no stroke between them. Okay, so this kind of black stroke around the outside of my purple, that's easy enough to make. But then how do we address this? How do we do this? Well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to create the lines and then get rid of them. So let's zoom in here. Okay, and I take my line and I'm just going to pull one down here, and then I'm going to curve them so that they kind of match the style of the original. Okay, Command minus, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, not too much. Space bar. All right, and now I've kind of got, I probably should have added a little bit of section there, but you get the idea. And now we've got a shape in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool, and I'm going to start filling in some colors. So let's pick up this purple, okay, and you'll see when I click this, it's going to add it to the fill. So I'm going to click that guy, it changes my fill color purple, and when I click here, it's going to add that purple into this fill. Eyedropper tool again, I'm going to pick up this blue, and I'm going to fill it. Eyedropper tool again, I'm going to pick up this green, and I'm going to fill it. And then I'm going to get rid of this line by using my selection tool and just clicking once on this segment, delete on my keyboard, once on this segment, delete on my keyboard. And now I've got a nice kind of approximation of that. I think this blue is a little too dark, so I'm going to redo that. Eyedropper tool, I must have picked up a dark pixel. Okay, and then I'm going to fill it in. It's still quite dark. It's a little better. Anyways, that's okay. All right, so then I'm going to just continue. You guys, I don't think you need me to talk through it, but I'll just keep doing it. And if there's anything that looks like you need, that you're having trouble with, I will talk through it. But it's pretty straightforward from this point on. All I need to do is sort of make all of my shapes. Ooh, I'm going to actually. So if I click and drag, if I want it to be a perfect circle, if I hold Shift, it'll constrain my size to be a circle, and I want that because I want to make sure it's not an oval. I want it to be a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my circle here, okay, about that size. I actually don't need a stroke, so I'm going to turn the stroke off and delete it. I'm going to change this fill to be black. Okay, I'm going to make this guy. I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and pick up this yellow, fill this, and then I'm going to grab this eye and place it about there. Okay. Let's continue here. I'm going to put some lines in. So this guy goes from here to about here. And this guy is going to go from here all the way down to about, I'm going to do this in two parts. One here and one to here. And then I'm going to use this just to straighten it up, because it looks like this blue line should be straight. Okay. Drawing this eye here, we're going to start over here. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? Move that over there for now. I'm going to do the eye first. So let's start here. We'll go to this line and curve that part of the eye up. And then I'm going to draw the other half of the eye. Selection tool, I'm going to move this part of the eye down to about there. Oval tool, I'm going to make my eye, okay, holding shift to make it a perfect circle. I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to get the right color. So it's like a pinky color, sort of. I'm going to fill that in. We could add these in. We'll add those in 1 minute. I'm going to add a black circle, so I don't need this stroke. I'm going to select that and delete it. And I'm going to change this to be black. And there's our iris. I'm going to move that in place to about there. And then we're going to, I think this actually might be a little big. Let's see. It's like a tiny bit big. So I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to go over to my properties here, and I'm going to, actually no, I'm going to use my transform tool. My transform tool is up here, okay, and I'm just going to bring it down. Holding shift, I don't want it to squish like this or squish in this direction. I'm going to hold shift, and that'll keep it constrained. I'm just going to bring it down like a little tiny bit there. Back to my selection tool, and that looks about right there. A little bigger, but that's okay. All right, I think that the stroke shouldn't be so dark, so I'm going to make this, I can go to my eyedropper tool, pick up like a darker purple. Oops, wrong tool. I need to be using for this, this is the paint bucket tool, which only does fills. I need a stroke because this black is a stroke, so I need to actually choose the ink bottle tool, which is essentially the same thing, but it will only pick up a fill. So I got to change this color here to like there, and then use my ink bottle tool to fill that in, and that's a little bit better. It's a little brown and it's a little thick, so I'm going to grab that and I'm going to turn this maybe down to 3, okay, and that changes it down to a little bit of a thinner ridge around the outside. All right, that's looking okay. I'm going to bring this guy back now over to here. What was it? It was here. Okay, so I'm actually going to drag it from this point and snap it to this edge. Okay, and now I'm just going to get rid of the stuff that I don't want. Like I don't want that line, I don't want that line, I don't want that line, and that looks pretty good. Okay, let's fill in this eye. So eyedropper tool, pick up the color of this eye, fill that in, that looks okay. And then we can start eyedropper tool again. The shortcut for the eyedropper tool is I on the keyboard. Okay, so if I need to pick up a color, I can just go I, pick this up. Oops, wrong thing. That should go here. Eyedropper tool, pick up the green, I pick up that, I pick up this, I pick up this. Again, this is again that same blue. I'm going to fill that in here. Oh, I missed a line here, so I'm going to go to my line tool and change it to black before I do anything. Although it doesn't matter because I can delete it in a second. But this goes to about there. I'm going to fill this, eyedropper, pick up this green, fill, eyedropper, pick up this purple, fill, go to my selection tool, and click on this line and delete it because there's no segment between those. And we're looking like we're in pretty good shape here. I think that looks all right. Maybe you want to continue with the hood and some of the background colors. So then you could potentially starting, looks like you kind of go up to about there. And then I'm going to I'm actually going to start this curve first and then bring that down to about here. My next line looks like it's going to kind of come into around here. Curve that out a little bit. It's a little too far. I'm going to bring this whole thing forward and then add in a little bit of the details. So around there, actually I can probably go straight through and then to here. And then eyedropper tool again, I on my keyboard. I need a green for this, and I need I on my keyboard. I need a green for that. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this. I think I'll get rid of this stroke here. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. We can add in the colors for the background, but I think for now this is looking all right. I'm not going to do the colors in that background for now, because I think we're in pretty good shape here. Okay, give that a shot. If any of that is confusing, start that tutorial over again. You may need to do it a couple times to get things right. And if you need any help specifically with anything, come and see Mr. St.Romain. I'm sure we can sort out whatever was confusing. But that is all there is to it. And now you're Picasso master. Okay, all done.